All right, so let's go back to that conversation now. Fuel petrol subsidy. Now, see the federal government's decision to delay petrol subsidy removal is getting a lot of attention right now. But what's the way forward? Joining me now is Professor Damilola Olawi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Great to have you on the show, and happy May Day.
Thank you very much. Happy May Day to you as well.
So recently, President Muhammadu Buhari said the Petroleum Industry Act remains his administration's greatest achievement in the energy sector. How does this postponement impact the implementation of the PIA?
Well, the PIA is indeed a great step, a significant accomplishment. It took many years for it to come to fruition, but we're delighted it has eventually come to fruition. But as you rightly noted, the PIA is meant to be supplemented by a wide range of other initiatives. One of them is the process of deregulation and elimination of fuel subsidies. So if there is going to be a delay in the implementation of subsidy removal, then it's going to affect the overall positive gains that we're hoping to see with the PIA. Don't forget that one of the thrusts of the PIA is to ensure that the petroleum industry works in a very systematic manner, devoid of artificial subsidy effects. So now that subsidy removal is going to be delayed, then we may see a slower implementation of the PIA itself.
And definitely, we've been talking about that loan from the World Bank that's supposed to help, create a buffer for vulnerable Nigerians. What happens to that now?
Well, we've received, according to information, we've received the first tranche of the World Bank funding that is meant to serve as a palliative that will provide cash transfer to the poorest household that may be impacted by subsidy removal. But what we are seeing is that there is going to be a delay. It's going to be on the laps of the incoming administration to then implement the subsidy removal. The delay itself does not affect the World Bank's commitment of providing that funding. So what we will just see is that the process of disbursing the funding may be delayed, given the fact that subsidy removal may not occur until sometime after June. So I see that the World Bank funding will be in place, but it will then be the decision of the incoming administration on how to effectively use that funding. Don't forget that the World Bank funding is meant to be for both cash and non-cash interventions. By cash interventions, we mean the cash transfer, but the non-cash interventions will include providing mass transit, providing transportation infrastructure, such that people don't necessarily have to buy petrol and they can then go in mass transit systems. So what I expect the incoming government to do is to focus on improving the non-cash aspect of the implementation by rapidly accelerating infrastructure development, such that we can reduce the number of households that depend on their own transportation. And that way we can continue to provide that sort of palliative in that regard as well.
And since the federal government is dealing with revenue constraints at this point, what do you think happens if we cannot afford to pay for this petrol subsidy going forward, but we still want to leave it there?
It will be a very tough decision. Worldwide, the process of eliminating subsidies is normally a politically charged process. And what we've seen in other countries like Indonesia and Qatar and many other countries in the Gulf, where they've implemented subsidy removal, is that it is normally through a phased approach. You don't just wake up and say it's done, a system that has been in place for many years. So you see a country like Qatar, they started with saying 30% removal of subsidy, and then they went on through a phased approach. And that phased approach includes both cash transfer and non-cash interventions, providing transportation system, easing the burden on the public, increasing salaries, providing free education, and those sort of other interventions, such that by the time you then get to 100% removal of the subsidy, people already feel a sort of comfort, and they will not feel left alone or left stranded by the government. So it's indeed a very strategic decision that the incoming administration must handle with all sort of sincerity and expertise. There is a need to tap in, to look into the process of that cash and non-cash intervention, such that we will be able to handle such a politically charged matter in a very efficient way.
And definitely, we've seen, most oil producers, they've benefited from oil prices, skyrocketing recently. We've seen Aramco also, profit a lot, from that. What can we learn from these countries and a company like Aramco?
Well, you see that the first process, you've seen a number of entities like Saudi Aramco, even Qatar Energy, formerly Qatar Petroleum. What you've seen is a process of reform internally to ensure that these large companies begin to function more like privately run, efficient businesses. And I think, in all credit to the outgoing government, the NNPC has also been reformed to become NNPC Limited, to start that process of commercializing it, making it to have the efficiency of a private sector-driven entity. So I think that process has to be intensified. The efficiency of the national oil company must be increased. Its ability to attract foreign partnerships and collaborations must be increased. And of course, it must then begin to improve transparency as well, such that even the income, the revenue are properly accounted for, and even the expenditure aspect of things are transparent as well. I think that process of increasing its efficiency, as well as promoting transparency and accountability, would increase its output in terms of how investors see it, and they will increase the confidence that investors have in it in terms of driving it to the next level. And that's what you've seen with Saudi Aramco, you've seen with Qatar Energy. They've also introduced the third dimension, which is to now begin to prepare for the shocks associated with energy transition. And that's why you see Qatar Petroleum changing name to become Qatar Energy, to introduce the fact that, well, we are also focusing on energy transition and moving from just a petroleum company to an energy company. I think we need to see more of that as well, the integration of energy transition consideration into the work of the NNPC, such that it can withstand the shocks that the energy industry globally will be witnessing in the next few years.
Yeah, definitely a lot of shocks to prepare for. Thank you so much, Professor Damilola Olawi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. It's great having your perspective today, and happy May Day.
Thank you very much.